Just in, the glance between Leonor and Christian. Everyone's talking about Eyes Red Heart. It was supposed to be just another royal event. A night of elegance, protocol, cameras, smiles. But in a single second, everything changed. One look, one silent moment between two young royals, Princess Leonor of Spain and Prince Christian of Denmark, and suddenly, the entire world stopped. Because sometimes, love doesn't need words. It speaks through a glance. And this glance told an entire story. The setting was breathtaking. The Grand Royal Theatre in Madrid, glimmering under chandeliers, filled with dignitaries, monarchs, and diplomats. It was the kind of night meant for diplomacy, not romance. Spain was hosting a European Youth Leadership Gala, celebrating cooperation between the continent's future leaders. Cameras rolled, flashes sparked, the orchestra played. Then, Leonor entered, graceful, composed, wearing a deep sapphire gown that shimmered with every step, a reflection of her mother, Queen Letitia's elegance, but with a spark that was entirely her own. She smiled softly, greeting guests, shaking hands, embodying everything a future queen should be. But then, something unexpected happened. As she turned toward the Danish delegation, her gaze locked on someone she hadn't seen in months. Prince Christian, tall, calm, charismatic, dressed in his formal suit, every inch the future king. But the look in his eyes, when he saw her, wasn't political. It was human, and in that one moment, the air in the theater seemed to shift. The camera caught it, the faint, almost imperceptible smile tugging at Leonor's lips. The way Christian's expression softened, as though the world around him had faded. It lasted only a heartbeat, but that single heartbeat exploded across Europe. "Did you see it?" one journalist whispered. The look. By midnight, social media was ablaze. The glance. The smile that stopped Spain. The future king and queen, caught in a moment. But behind the headlines was something deeper. Something the cameras couldn't fully capture, the history between them. Because this wasn't the first time Leonor and Christian's connection had stolen attention. Their friendship, nurtured through years of royal engagements, had quietly evolved into something far more meaningful. From summer visits in Majorca to shared appearances at royal galas, every interaction carried a spark that no protocol could hide. And yet, both knew the stakes. They were heirs, bound by tradition, watched by millions, living lives where even a glance could become a headline. Which is exactly what happened that night. After the event ended, royal correspondents described a scene that left everyone talking. As the orchestra concluded its final piece, the guests rose for the closing address. King Felipe stood, delivering a speech about unity and youth leadership. Cameras panned across the audience, and that's when it happened again. Leonor turned slightly, just enough to meet Christian's eyes. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't deliberate. But it was real. And the emotion in that glance, admiration, warmth, and spoken longing, was unmistakable. Even King Felipe noticed. Observers later noted how his gaze flickered toward his daughter, just briefly. His expression unreadable, yet filled with understanding. He, too, knew that this moment wasn't mere teenage curiosity. It was something more profound. After the gala, the palace tried to downplay the story. Officially, it was described as a brief exchange of courtesies between two future leaders. But by morning, that explanation felt hollow. The public had seen too much. The photographs told their own story. Two young royals, raised for duty, caught in a moment of unmistakable emotion. And while the world debated what it meant, Spain's tabloids calling it a royal spark, Denmark's newspapers labeling it a diplomatic friendship, those who were closest to them saw the truth. This wasn't staged. It wasn't calculated. It was a human connection, quietly blooming in the most public of worlds. Behind palace doors, Leonor returned to Zarzuela that night visibly moved. Queen Letizia, ever perceptive, noticed it immediately. "You saw him again," she said softly. Leonor didn't deny it. "Yes," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother smiled gently. "Be careful, Iha. The world loves love stories, but they rarely protect them." Meanwhile, in Denmark, Christian faced his own storm. The royal advisors were already discussing the optics. "The Spanish press has turned this into a romance," one aide warned. "We must keep it formal." But Queen Mary, watching the footage with quiet amusement, simply said, "Leave it. They're young. Let them have their moment." Her husband, Crown Prince Frederick, nodded. "We once had ours, too." Still, the world wouldn't let it go. Every angle of that glance was analyzed, slowed down, magnified. Body language experts appeared on morning shows, dissecting posture and micro-expressions. "See how she lowers her gaze after he looks at her," one expert explained. "That's a sign of emotional awareness, not coincidence." In Spain, the public adored it. For a nation often weighed down by political tension, this glimpse of young, hopeful love felt refreshing, like a reminder that even among crowns and titles, hearts still beat normally. But not everyone was pleased. Some senior advisors quietly feared that such attention could overshadow Leonor's growing role as heir. "She is preparing to reign," one counselor warned. "The people must see her as a leader, not as part of a romantic narrative." King Felipe listened carefully to these concerns. Yet later that evening, when he spoke privately with his daughter, his tone was tender, not stern. "I saw what everyone saw," he said gently. "And I also saw something they didn't. I saw sincerity." Leonor looked down, unsure how to respond. He continued, "Do not let them make you afraid of your humanity. You can be both, a queen and a person." Those words would stay with her long after that night. As days passed, the frenzy continued to build. Magazines published side-by-side timelines of their appearances. How long have Leonor and Christian been close? Did King Felipe approve? Could Spain and Denmark's thrones be linked by love? In the background, though, Leonor and Christian stayed silent. They didn't issue statements. They didn't appear together again immediately. But silence only deepened the intrigue. A week later, the European Youth Initiative posted an official photo of both heirs, standing side by side, smiling politely. Yet, eagle-eyed observers noticed something subtle. Their hands, though separate, were angled slightly toward each other. It was almost poetic, the restraint of royalty meeting the pull of emotion. Even the BBC called it the most powerful unspoken connection in modern monarchy. Behind the scenes, both families began to accept an undeniable truth: whatever was forming between them wasn't a distraction. It was destiny meeting at the crossroads of two kingdoms. King Felipe, ever pragmatic, began inviting the Danish royal family to future cultural collaborations. Queen Mary responded warmly, calling it a wonderful opportunity for the next generation. The groundwork was quietly being laid, not for an announcement, but for understanding. And through it all, that single glance remained etched in public memory. Because it wasn't about scandal. It wasn't even about romance in the traditional sense. It was about hope. About the humanity of royalty in an era of endless scrutiny. Weeks later, Leonor gave a short interview during her military training. When asked about the pressures of royal life, she smiled faintly and said, "Sometimes, people forget that we feel the same as everyone else. We just don't always have the freedom to show it." The world immediately connected that answer back to that night. That glance. That spark. And though neither she nor Christian confirmed anything, their silence spoke louder than words. Months later, when they reunited publicly at a diplomatic summit in Oslo, the cameras were ready. But this time, when they greeted each other, a simple handshake, a polite exchange, the world noticed the same thing again. The eyes. The warmth. The unmistakable recognition of two souls walking the same impossible path. The glance between them had become more than a viral moment. It had become a symbol of grace under pressure, of feeling amid formality, of love within legacy. And perhaps that's why the world can't stop talking about it. Because in that one shared look, captured by 1,000 cameras but understood by only two hearts, the future of European royalty revealed itself, not as cold, ceremonial duty, but as something deeply human. A glance that said everything. A glance that changed everything. And perhaps, in the story of Princess Leonor and Prince Christian, that glance was never just a spark. It was the quiet promise of something greater, something that would one day define them both.